You are now listening to The Jason Damico Show.
Greetings, folks. Welcome back to The Jason Damico Show. So great to be back. It's been probably a few weeks, if not maybe a month or two at this point. A lot of things happening in our world. Really appreciate you guys subscribing. And don't forget to give some love to our distributor Simplecast, as well as the great streaming providers Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, for having us on their platforms as well. And you guys are in such a treat today. It's such a privilege and honor to have our guest today, who is a Grammy Award winning music industry executive, personal manager, and writer. She has discovered and developed the careers of Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Poison, Faster Pussycat, and many others that you have probably heard of. She's also been featured in VH1's Behind the Music and Driven, the BBC and biography channel, and documentaries. Her over 30 years in the music industry also includes working as an A&R executive at Geffen, Capitol, and Vapor Records, as well as running a record label of her own, which won a Grammy for June Carter Cash. And the acts that she's developed have managed to sell over 250 million units combined. Her poetry book, Veiled Illusions for the Innocent and Guilty, is out now and available for purchase at VickyHamilton.com. Please welcome to the show my good friend, Miss Vicky Hamilton. It's so great to have you.
It's good to see you, Jason. You haven't been out to LA lately. Missing you.
Yeah, I'm missing you too. I think the last time I was there was, I want to say, like smack in the middle of the pandemic, right? It's like 2021-ish, somewhere around there.
But we did manage to find a restaurant that was open outside, I think.
We did, and that's a testament to you for knowing the area. That was my first time to LA, and we were shooting some master shots for Kenny Aronoff. He's playing drums on the single at the time, and it was a great. I really enjoyed that week, and thanks for making it even more special by taking some time to get together for lunch.
Of course.
Well, it's an honor to have you on the show, and obviously, I reached out about your latest work, Veiled Illusions, which we'll get into in just a few minutes. But I wanted to start. You have such an encompassing career and full 360-degree career. It'd be impossible to cover it in just one episode. But I do want to go back in time for a bit and just kind of talk about your beginning stages. You have a really, really interesting story with kind of having roots in the Midwest and then heading out to L.A., and I think Tom Petty was in that mix at some point, kind of helping push you out there. And I really am curious to kind of hear more about that.
He basically said I looked like a California girl, and that was kind of all it took, you know.
Interesting. So how did you meet him?
Well, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers are playing through Indiana, and I kind of stalked them at a hotel. It's like, you know. We saw the tour bus and we were kind of waiting for them to get on the bus, but little did I know they were already on the bus, and they got off the bus, and my friend looked at me and went, "It's now or never." So I jumped off the bus and like grabbed him by the arm and said, "Hey, Tom, can I like interview you?" And he was like, "Sure, come on up to my room." He was super cool. Yeah. So that's how it started. We miss him for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I had recently kind of gone through another Tom Petty kick when I think Rick Rubin, who's also a friend of yours, if I'm not mistaken, he was on Rick Beato's podcast recently talking about a bunch of music, and obviously one of the major artists that he produced and worked with was Tom Petty. And some of the records that he did with him in the kind of like that 90s period, incredible. I mean, like it just really refueled my whole love for him as an artist. And I don't know if kind of throwing Rick Rubin into the mix, was that kind of early on as well? Did you meet him later in your career? What was kind of the story with that?
I met Rick when American Records was called Def American, and they were distributed through Geffen Warner Brothers. So when I was doing A&R at Geffen, I met him because he was in the building a lot, He's an incredible guy, very soft-spoken, but, he just has so much wisdom. He always seems like he's like on another level, but I recently listened to his book on Spotify, and even though it's like pretty elementary knowledge, it's just like, of course, of course, of course. And, I mean, any artist should like really listen to it.
Yeah, I had heard of his book. I'm assuming it came out this year,
I think it was
probably.
here. I don't know for sure, but
Okay. I'm gonna have to look into that myself because I'm a big
yeah.
fan of Rick's and but again
Like
it's just that it's just
every
that
chapter, they ring the gong.
the
He's like
audio.
the rock and roll guru now.
Yeah, oh, for sure, for sure. So okay, so you meet Tom Petty out in the Midwest. Um, you're working in a record store, I believe in Indiana, if I'm not mistaken, and that kind of Tom gives you that little boost. You find yourself out in LA. You weren't managing at the time when you first got out there. Again, correct me if I'm wrong.
Actually, I was.
You were.
Yeah,
Okay.
I brought a band from Ohio and Indiana. That was kind of my intention. I mean, never mind that I didn't really know anybody in LA yet. I thought this will be easy. I'll just like walk right in, right? But no, it's not quite like that. But yeah, I kind of hit like the glass ceiling in Indiana pretty quickly because there's just like not a lot of places you can go after like being a journalist and working in a record store and like some early you know, being a concert promoter or whatever. There just isn't any record business to be had. So yeah, so I went from being a big fish in a small pond to being a little fish in a big pond, and it was very enlightening very quickly.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I'm sure you can relate as an actor. It's like
Oh
where
yeah.
in like South Carolina when you went to New York, it was probably like, uh-oh, here we go. But
Well, it happened in stages because I was actually fairly comfortable with the city in my middle school years because I had an agent, I was auditioning and everything, but it was a totally different dynamic, and you just learn, right? You really don't know until you know and you go there and it definitely has a different vibe. I think the principles are still the same though, treat people the way you want to be treated. Um, but there's that aspect of being green that you're just not going to learn until you kind of throw yourself in there and just kind of deal with it.
in Indiana, there were like not a lot of sharks. It's like, getting
Right.
into play and like being lied to and taken advantage of, like, it definitely sharpens your skills quickly. You have to sort of decipher the bullshit, I guess is a good way to put it.
That's a great way to put it. I want to ask you this too. I don't know in other interviews that I've heard from you. Um, I don't know if I've really heard anybody ask. So I was curious. Who were some of your main influences? I know that David Geffen plays a big role in your career, and you credit him in some of your work. But I was just curious, was it more from a musician standpoint, an artist standpoint, managers, booking agents, like who really kind of lit your
Oh,
fire?
there were a lot. In the early days was a guy named Bob McCutcheon who worked for Sunshine Promotion and then later like stepped in when I was managing Poison and sort of co-managed with me there. He's still a concert promoter outside of Indianapolis, I believe in a town called Nashville, but it's not Tennessee Nashville, it's Indiana. But so that early on, and then like I went to the new music seminar and I met Bill Graham, and that was like kind of a big moment for me, because I had like read so much about him and the way that he operated with artists and Clive Davis and a lot of people that I read
Yeah.
books about. Later on it was like Richard Branson, and then when I moved to LA, gosh, so many people. a guy named Freddie Piero who ran Ocean Studios, still a mentor for me today. Um, Obviously David Geffen, Gary Gersh, Tom Zutat, John Kolodner, all the A&R people at Geffen that I took notes from. And then I went on to Capitol Records with Gary Gersh. I also worked with Elliot Roberts, who managed Neil Young, and he
Wow.
was David Geffen's partner in the early days. So it's like, you know, Elliot once said to me after I worked at Geffen and I went to work at Lookout, he goes, "Well, you already work for the best," meaning David Geffen. He goes, "Why do you want to work with me?" And I go, "Well, you're the other best, so I want to see the different sides of the coin." And also he had managed Tom Petty. Like when I was in Indiana, I was like constantly sending Elliot Roberts notes saying, "I have to work for you, I have to work for you." And I even like dressed a guy up in a diaper with balloons and sent him into his office saying, on a New Year's type deal. But finally he did hire me.
Finally, he did hire you. I think one word.
At some point, I'm kind of like that character on that movie. I won't be ignored.
I was just gonna say, I think one word that really describes your career, besides just natural talent, having natural talent, and just being able to hear things, and we'll get into that in a second with the Ghetto Blaster Axel story, which I think is
Yeah, yeah,
hilarious. But it's
yeah,
persistence. I mean,
yeah.
you are not afraid, and that's one of the things that I've learned from you over the years, is you've been kind of a mentor from afar. Um, eh, just persist, just having that kind of that laissez-faire attitude, but still really caring paradoxically about what you're about and what you do and having respect, but just really going for it.
Yeah, I spoke at a rock and roll fantasy camp this weekend, and it was for girls, and I was just like, it's one thing to reach out to somebody, but if you're going to reach out to somebody, do some research. It's like find out a little about the person. It's like sometimes I'm just like in awe of how people come to me because clearly they never read anything about me. If they want to like shop me rap projects or whatever, I've never had a successful one of them. Not to say that I wouldn't try it because I
Sure.
probably would. Like when I took on June Carter, I'd never done a country thing and it won a Grammy. Sometimes ignorance is bliss, but if you're going to hit somebody up like that, you probably want to say, well, I know you've never done this, but I believe that you could.
Yeah.
So
Make it make sense,
yeah,
kind
make
of.
it make sense. It's like, I like cold wrote to the Arctic Monkeys manager, Ian McAndrew, and he's one of my mentors now. It's like sometimes if you say the right thing, people will write you back. I mean, a lot of people have said to me, out of all the people in the world, why do you think that he wrote you? And I go, well, it's because I did the research. I
Right.
kind of knew a little about him. Like you will notice that every band that he has a great drummer. That's because he was a drummer. So, just things like that. Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into more on your timeline. So, get out to LA. You're hanging out with Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee, Motley Crue, and then somehow getting into the mix with Slash and Axel. Uh, and for those of you that are listening or watching, you can find a lot more about this. It's pretty much prevalent on the internet, but just to kind of give a broad paintbrush as we continue down
Or
your
buy the
career,
book.
by the exactly
The
appetite for
Appetite for
dysfunction.
Dysfunction, yes, which is going to be a TV series soon. So, um, yeah. So, what were we talking about? Axel
Well,
Slash.
just your time in LA in during the Sunset Strip era, just kind of like paint a picture for us, because I've a lot of those bands I love, and a lot of our listeners love, and it's like you have such a seminal aspect, and like you're just such a linchpin in that community and the sound and what happened, and just putting people together, managing. It's just like without you, a lot of these bands may have never made it.
Well, I don't know if that's true. maybe they would meet someone else that would help them, or, I don't believe that bands just make it because they're fabulous, because there's a million fabulous bands out there. It's a sort of combination of being fabulous and luck and meeting the right people and things. But I met Slash very early on, and he was in a band called Black Sheep, and I booked Black Sheep with who was then Hollywood Rose, and that turned into Guns N' Roses, and Black Sheep opened for Hollywood Rose, and there was that slow-mo moment where I sort of introduced Axl and Slash. Slash said he had like jammed with Axl before, but I definitely reconnected them. But that was like a big moment. And I love Slash so much. I tried to put him in every project that I worked on. I mean, he got the job to play with Poison when Matt Smith like went back to the East Coast, but that only lasted about a day. He was like, no, I'm not going to say hi, my name's Slash, and I won't wear all the fucking makeup. So, yeah, Cece kind of entered the next day. Um, you know, yeah. In the 80s, it seemed like bands were just born in the Rainbow parking lot, and they would try each other on and, either stick or move on. So
Right.
the timeline's a little sticky for a lot of those projects. Like when I was writing the book, I had to like interview my friends and go, okay, now which came first, the chicken or the egg?
So,
You know,
t- GNR, they lived with you, right, for a number of
yeah,
months. And
yeah.
what I mean, what was that like? How did that happen? What was that like? Because I think it was only a couple of days that they were supposed to be there, and it just turned into basically half a year.
Yeah, the police were looking for Axel at their rehearsal hall, and Slash is like, well, will you, let him stay at your place for a minute? And I was like, yeah, okay, So that happened, and then the police kept coming by, so they all moved in except for Duff, who was living with his girlfriend. Um, yeah, I mean, this is kind of what the series is going to be based on, is that time period, and
Wow.
you know. I would have never said yes, knowing that it was going to be 6 months of that. So I guess, if you say, okay, for a couple of days, then, this is how these things happen. I've never let a band move in with me since. So, and before they come and stay a day or two, I always put a time limit on it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah.
this ghetto blaster, can you remind me of this story? Because I remember you telling this to me years back, and I just thought it was one of the funniest things I ever heard of, where somebody didn't have a
I was
stereo,
an
and he's like, "Oh, I'll just
agent.
bring one over."
Yeah, I was an agent, and Axel called up and said, you come highly recommended, we would like you to book us some gigs. I'm like, okay, well, send me a tape. And he's like, well, can't I just bring you a tape? And I go, well, I don't have a stereo here. And he's like, oh, well, I'll bring my ghetto blaster. And that made me laugh. So I was like, yeah, okay, come on. When somebody's that confident, you like kind of want to hear it. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was a pivotal moment, right? From what I remember, because some of those songs ended up
Oh
on
yeah, they were on
Appetite.
Appetite. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
They were still Hollywood Rose. They weren't Guns N' Roses yet. Slash wasn't in the band, and Steven wasn't in the band yet either, I don't think. So it was like, it was a few months after that the major lineup happened, but it was in the works, you know.
Now you were. Let me ask you this: so you'd been working in record stores for quite a while. Licorice Pizza, which also has a lot of history in the Strip area. Uh, you obviously had this ear for hearing things and kind of where they were going. What were you just kind of walk me through like what you were hearing for the first time on those demo tapes? Was it the energy? Was it Axel's personality? Was it a little bit of everything? Was it just the way it made you feel? I was just curious, like kind of how you curated through those bands back then, and you just knew when you had something.
Well, it has something to do with the it factor. I don't really know what it is, but
Right.
I know when I
You
hear
just
it.
you just know it.
But also at the very core of it all, it's great songs. It's like I think because I did grow up in the Midwest where the radio stations mostly tote historical rock. Like when I go back to Indiana, they're still playing the same shit on the radio that they were playing when I left there in 1981. It's like Pink Floyd, Tom Petty, the bands that um what do they call that? It's album oriented rock, but
Yeah.
hit rock stuff.
Yeah.
Like still to this day you would not hear like Arctic Monkeys or anybody that was like remotely cutting edge in the rock world. But I think because I grew up listening to hit rock records, I just resonated towards that. Like I think if I had like been born in California and listened to alternative rock, I may have not made the same choices. Like I might have liked something a little more cutting edge or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things I love about Guns N' Roses, their entire discography, and I think Slash had a lot to do with this, was that blues roots element that
Oh, well, that came from Aerosmith
oh
with
it okay, so really it was
Aerosmith was played on the radio in Indiana, so
yeah, yeah,
to me,
yeah.
I could hear that and like Slash idolized Joe Perry. I mean, this one journalist gave me a picture of Slash and Joe Perry backstage at the Whiskey, and it's like this incredible photograph. It was like just knowing Slash and that whole history, it was just like, wow, this is like really precious stuff. I don't even know if the photographer realized what he had captured.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know. So I didn't know that Joe Perry was a huge influence on it, but that makes complete sense from his playing.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was like living with Slash, it was like his favorite record was Aerosmith Rocks, all the time. Aerosmith Rocks. Let's hear Aerosmith Rocks.
That's great. That I didn't know that. That's one of the things I love about this is you learn something on every episode, and I'm learning
Yeah,
way
I
more than
mean,
one thing here.
most of the bands at that point in time in Hollywood were very glammy and simple and Guns N' Roses stood out because they were taking from Aerosmith and the Stones and bands that had come from the 70s that had that sort of blues element in the band. Izzy was a really good writer too, so he like resonated towards that as well.
Who was the main writer? Well, they all wrote, right? So, but
Well, it depends on what they're writing. It's
okay,
like I'd say the best overall writer was Izzy. Um, Axel had his moments, like I heard Axel write or I heard him play November Rain on the piano for the first time, and I was just like blown out. I was like, I didn't know he could play the piano like that. And B, those lyrics, those
yeah.
were phenomenal. And I was like, wow. I didn't know that you could like play the piano like he's like, there's a lot of things you don't know about me, Vicky, which I'm sure was true. So
Oh man, he would so say that too. I don't know. I've never met him.
yeah.
I've never met him, but I could just so see him saying that. Uh, let's head over to Veiled Illusions for a second.
Okay.
Read the poetry book, and it's definitely not your typical poetry book. Very good though. Really enjoyed it, and I I wrote a few down here that were my personal favorites, and we didn't talk about this before we went on the air. If this is something you'd like to do, and you have a copy over there, if you'd like to read a few excerpts, you're more than welcome to. But I just wanted to rattle off a few of my favorites, which
Okay. Here.
are Your Ghost,
Right.
Sunflower, Sharks and Snakes, Praise for
Mm.
Groupies. I thought that was a really interesting. That was really interesting. I thought that was really interesting. I Will Take Care of You and The Legend. Those are the ones that I had written down that really. I thought they were. I mean, the whole book is great, but those I really felt resonated with me, and I could
So who do
just.
you think Legend is about?
I'd have to read it again. I
Okay.
think is that the one about the red carpet?
Yeah.
Starts with the red. I would think it is Axel, but I don't know.
Could be. Could be.
Okay.
But if I told you, then it wouldn't be a veiled illusion,
That's
right?
the
But
whole
I just want
point.
to, yeah.
That's what I think. I don't want it to be him because the way that reads, it's kind of disappointing, but that's what I think it is. I don't want it to be him, but I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, those are some of my favorites. I wrote Sharks and Snakes when I was in Italy. Like, I think getting away from Hollywood, I could like really see it for what what it
Yeah, and
really is. No, that
you like broke something in Italy, right?
yeah, I broke my wrist. I mean,
Oh God.
fell down a marble staircase and broke my wrist when I was like getting the water taxi to the airport. And I actually flew to New York with a broken wrist, just thinking that I sprang it. And I had showcases in New York. And the next day, my wrist like blew up like nobody's business. I had to go back to LA, so I didn't even get to go to my band showcases.
Dang.
And I had like meetings like with Danny Goldberg and others that I was very disappointed that I didn't get to take. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. And you had
yeah,
and thanks by the way for the invite to you had a recent release party, so to
yeah.
speak, in LA, and I unfortunately couldn't make it because of other show commitments over here. But I am assuming that went well. There were a lot of great people
It
in the
was
room.
completely off the hook,
Yeah,
honestly.
love it.
Like this great venue called Desert Five Spot. And when you come back out, you have to go there. It's like you take this elevator ride to the top and it's got this like full on view of the city. But
Wow.
not only did I read, it's like the Mystic Knights, who is like Chris from Jet, that band Jet's new
Yeah,
band. Broke up with his brother, and this is like his new band. They were phenomenal.
yeah.
And then this band called Midnight Cowgirls, who are all girls that were really fantastic too. Um, Jenny V from Midnight Cowgirls is also in Eagles of Death Metal. She's a bass player
That's a
of
good
Eagles of Death.
band. I haven't heard them
Yeah,
in a
that's a
while,
good
but
band too. But
yeah.
Midnight Cowgirls are phenomenal as well. She's also married to Slim Jim Phantom, so there was this insane cool Hollywood crowd at you know one of my favorite nights in recent years, I have to
Wow.
say. After
Uh,
I did my reading, I was like all nerved out until I did it, but then after it was over with, I was like, wow, this is really fun. I'm having a great time. you know?
I'm so happy for you. I mean, congrats on that. It's well deserved, and I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah, it was really good. I'm gonna do more, but not until after the first of the year. It's like it's too hard to like travel during the holidays, but I'm sort of planning something in Vegas and then like probably a stint through the Midwest. I don't know if I'm gonna get south or not, but maybe I'd like to. I'd like
Well,
to go
if
back to Asheville because I love Asheville, and since that flood, it's
oh,
just like
it's yeah, it's decimated. It's really really a bad scene, unfortunately. But if
I
you
hate
are
that.
interested in the Southeast, let me know because we got plenty of venues here, and it's something that we could
Yeah,
talk
what
more
town are
about.
you in?
We're over in RDU, so Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill.
Oh yeah. That'd
Yeah,
be fun. Maybe we
yeah.
could do something together. You could play and I could read or something. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll definitely have to put a pin in that one for sure.
I'll probably
Um,
go to Nashville. I mean, I've been talking with Iris Berry about doing all the music cities together because she's sort of a punk rock royalty person. And if we like did a little tour of the music cities, it'd be fun.
that would be cool. That would be cool. Well, uh, I got a couple other thoughts and ideas here. Let me
Okay.
ask you this. Success principles. I've been always kind of a follower of that term and that type of literature. A lot of books, a lot of audibles, and a lot of authors out there that kind of have written. It's kind of those staples like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Dale
Right.
Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. A lot of business folks, a lot of artists as well, but typically it's like
I've
those.
read them.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you have, and that's why I'm bringing this up because you have these principles, and I was curious to just ask you your thoughts on them, and especially in this industry, as crazy as it is. Um, if you could just shed light on some of the maybe the younger viewers and listeners. We have a few thousand subscribers, but a lot of the demographic is typically young producers, young artists, and just kind of your thoughts on what those success principles are, whether you're in the social media world or not. I feel like they just kind of stand the test of time.
Well, it's a very different record business now than it was in the 80s when I was working at Geffen and Capitol and, Lookout Management. Things are based on streaming and algorithms and, very computer driven, Um, we used to like give away t-shirts to sell records. Now we give away records to sell t-shirts. It's a very different business model,
Yeah,
you know, it's kind of sad. I mean, I would like to see artists make more money, obviously, as an artist manager, because I would make more money too. But, it's really about playing live as much as you can and crafting the best song that you can. Like I'm working with a lot of really good artists, but my band Motherwind seems to be, one of the best out of them because they sort of understand that they have to play all the time
right.
and get out and you know, you have to actually be able to talk to people too. You can't just like play a show and go sit backstage. Um, it's about being a personality, and people want to feel like they know you and they want to know you and, want to hear what you do. And I think you have to have a bit of transparency to break that wall for, you know, fans. It's like if they can't relate to you, why would they listen to your music?
That's a great point. It's a great point.
Yeah.
And I think it's always been like that, even with all the social media too. I mean, it comes down to relatability, and um, everybody has the attention span of a gnat these days. But if there's something relatable and it's captured within a second or 2 seconds or 3 seconds of a hook, we've seen this with like these vertical videos and TikTok and Instagram Reels, and it's like you keep seeing these memes. It's like you got into this to make music, and now you're like making videos and editing videos, and from that, then
Also,
you're
I think people want to have fun. Like
yeah,
I'm a huge fan of Chapel Roan. It's like, you know, those songs just speak to me. It's like, Good Luck Babe and, what's the one, Casual. Do you know that song? It's like I could play that stuff over and over and over again because it's just like, so fun. And also that one about the wine song where she goes, I heard you like magic. I have a wand and a rabbit. I'm like, holy shit, who sings that?
you have. I think you have an artist on your roster. I can't remember his name, and I can't remember the name of the song, but it had to do with like drinking at the bar,
Oh
and it was kind
yeah,
of
Jim
country.
Camacho. You guys should play together. You guys would be a good match together. He lives
What's
in
his name? What's
Florida.
his name again?
Jim Camacho.
Okay, and
You're
what was the
talking
name?
about Alcohol Me Now, which John
Yes.
Carter
Yeah,
produced.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
And
had
I
it
think
had
it had
600,000 streams. It's like a
it was funny. It was a comedy. It was
yeah.
comedic elements, but it was a very clever lyric. It was really,
When
really
they
well
when
written.
they wrote that, I think they were going for sort of a boy named Sue sort of vibe, and it really worked,
It did.
It's like, and a lot of guys do this dick picking stuff. It's like, what girl wants to see that? Really? I can't think of any. It's like I think it's a great song, and he's got a couple more that are coming up that are like, they're not funny like that, but really good songs. Um
That's great. It
He's a
was
great
really clever.
songwriter. It's like I wanted to sign his band The Goods when I worked at Capitol Records, and now that he's got this solo career, it's like I don't know. First of all, nicest guy on the planet and really easy to work with, and just like humble and good guy. You guys should do some dates together. I think that would be really good.
That would be cool. Is he on the East Coast? Is he out west or?
Oh, he's in Miami.
Oh, okay.
But I'm thinking of like doing, and then I put out a song with this guy Gen Z, who like wrote with Stevie D from oh, what's that band? Oh God, now I'm gonna like embarrass myself and not remember his band. But anyway, he's from a famous band, and it's a Christmas song, and they might do some dates together at some point. But you would be great too, to like do some dates with him.
Yeah, I'd love to get
What
connected with him for sure.
he wants to go back up and do some recording of the Cash Cabin. And I was like, well, if you're going to do that, I'll go because I love being there. It's like, I remember recording June's record there. And to me, it's just like this whirling vortex of energy, that place. It's just so incredible,
Is that in Nashville?
It's in Henderson, which
Okay,
is like Hendersonville. Yeah, Hendersonville, like above Nashville, like
I
north of
gotcha.
Nashville. Like a half hour, not far.
Okay, okay, yeah.
And it's still very country there. Like Nashville is not very country anymore. It's like
No, it's
you
very,
have to go to
it's
the outer limits to like feel like you're in the country. There's
yeah.
like a lake there, all kind, it's a precious spot. I hope it never changes.
Now, when you
Yeah.
guys won the Grammy, was that the studio that you worked at?
Yeah, but when we recorded June's record there was no like control room or ISO booth. It was just like a big living room. And we sat in front of the fireplace and we had to wait for the fire to crackle down so it wouldn't bleed through on the tracks. Now there's like a control room and ISO booths and the whole thing. They added this whole thing. So it's like
Wow.
more of a legit recording studio. But Johnny Cash, built all that in there after working with Rick Rubin. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Who produced? I was
There's a
curious.
great engineer there named Trey Call that works a lot with John Carter, and it's a brilliant spot.
Who produced that record? Were you involved with the production team? Was it Rick or
Or
who?
June's
Yeah.
record. Yeah, yeah. It was John Carter Cash and JJ Blair,
Okay.
and JJ lives out here in LA, but back then he like flew all his gear to the cash cabin and set it up. I mean, it was quite the experience, and like one of the highlights of my career for sure, because I normally work baby bands, but to work with June Carter and Johnny Cash, they were already legends, so
That's incredible.
it was a
It's
big
just
thrill for me.
incredible.
Did you see the documentary? It's up for a Grammy.
The is that
June?
Paramount Plus?
Yeah,
I
June.
so I haven't I am gonna watch it. I've seen the trailers. I think I saw a trailer on your website and a couple other clips maybe on YouTube. But I
Yeah,
really
it's
want to
like
check that
it's
out.
brilliant. Kristen did a great job, and There's a lot of footage of us making the record there. And it's like, I never saw that footage until this past year because
Wow.
the guy that like recorded that stuff, he like tried to get me to pay him a bunch of money and I don't have a bunch of money. So, it was like I didn't get to like see it until recently. And it was like so great to like hear June go, yeah, I'm working with Vicky Hamilton. It's like I never saw that stuff
That's
until
awesome.
recently, you know.
Now I gotta ask you this real quick, and then we'll kind of start wrapping up and give everybody where they can find you and order their copies of Veil Illusions and Appetite for Dysfunction.
VickyHamilton.com.
VickyHamilton.com.
Buy it from me, cut out the middleman. You know, you can't get it on Amazon, but buy it at
Hey, well,
VickyHamilton.com.
Amazon
Find a
takes like a
copy for you.
40% cut or something or
Yeah,
60% cut. So I'm not crazy. I mean, it's bad enough Spotify's 0.004 cents a stream. So
right.
no, you don't own anything anymore when you own your copyright. It just doesn't make any sense.
You own your content. And when
Yeah.
you make a TV series, that's important because you
Yes.
own,
Yes.
when you do a publishing deal, they take like half.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I did my TV deal, I owned 100% of my book. That was, you know,
Well, that's the
that was
story.
good.
That's the
Yeah,
intellectual property of the story, right? So you got the
yeah,
story, you have rights to really everything beyond that.
right.
Um, I wanted to ask you this. So Gene Simmons has said repeatedly over the last 20, 25 years that rock is dead. The last great rock band, in his opinion, was probably the Foo Fighters. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay.
I've always wanted to ask you that question, and I never really got around to it.
I don't think rock ever dies. Not completely. I mean, I don't know. It's like I think there's more rock bands out there than ever right now. And not all of them are great, but some of them are.
Sure.
It's like you have to like really look for them, but
Yeah.
there are some great rock bands out there.
Uh,
Motherwind's a great rock band. They'll
yeah, I
make
was just
it.
gonna say. So you've been not only as a booking agent and as a manager in the '80s. I mean, you're still doing it. You still have an incredible roster of talent. Motherwind being one of the bands, and various other bands that you're working with. What's kind of the deal with that? You've got a record label, I believe, Dark Spark, and I think
Yes.
that's still going on, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
5 years and
Wow.
11 million streams later, but
That's great.
yeah.
That's great. So you've got kind of this full 360 type of situation, and what are your thoughts with kind of like AI and all this other stuff coming into play? Like, I want to get your thoughts on that as well as like kind of projecting into the future of really what's happening and how you think that this is going to play out for artists.
Well, AI is not going away. And I have one project called Masterpiece Revolution that are doing everything in AI. And the guy in the band that does the AI worked on Avatar and a bunch of films, that use that. And I think we have to embrace it because it's not going anywhere.
Right.
I think it's going to get better. I mean, I can tell the difference between AI and live and whatever, but I think it all has its place. Um, yeah. I don't have much more on that yet, but I know that there's more coming. I personally don't know how to do it, but a lot of people do. So,
Sure.
and I think that it will make things less expensive to like do animated type stuff. I mean, I had a project where I tried to hire an animator and it was just like unbelievably expensive. I think AI will like cut those costs.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, you have to look at it all as like art forms, and there's going to be great AI and there's going to be terrible AI. It's like you have to like just look at it as another outlet for creativity.
We'll talk about cutting out the middleman, right?
Yeah.
AI
Oh
has a
yeah,
lot of
there's
potential to do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for better or for worse. I want to ask you real quick also about, as we kind of wrap up. You've referenced, and I could see it woven into your career and your psyche. You have this spirituality nature about you, kind of this real belief, um, faith kind of belief that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I thought I'd ask you that kind of towards the end of the interview, like your thoughts on belief, believing in yourself, believing in something greater than you, maybe. What are your thoughts on all that and how that plays into
Sure.
really making things happen?
Well, I believe in God, and it doesn't really matter whose face is on that door. I mean, for me, it's probably Jesus and Mary. But, I believe that all religions are valid and, I love that bumper sticker that says coexist and it's all the different
Oh yeah,
religious symbols. Because I believe that, it all comes from the same source and that, whatever you believe is what works for you in a sort of way, like June Carter always used to say, I'm a little bit Christian, I'm a little bit pagan, I'm a little bit Jewish, I'm a little bit this, that, the other thing, it's like it's all valid, and it makes me crazy when they're fighting in the Middle West or in the Middle East
yeah.
about all this. It's like, why can't we just all coexist and let people believe what they want to believe? And, I don't know. I pray, I meditate, I'm sober too. I mean, I think that had a lot to do with my spiritual path. It's like
Yeah,
until you're willing to like cut open the onion and see what's in the middle layers, I don't think you can really heal from it, And we all have our own wounds, but I think it's really important that you work on yourself. Like I have an artist coming out named Emma Wharton. She's from Liverpool, England, and her musical partner committed suicide, and she wrote this song called Slipped Away. I was listening to the Masters this morning. I was laying in bed just crying. I was just like,
wow,
she's truly taken lemons and made lemonade out of, this experience that nearly killed her, and I'm
wow.
like, this is gonna like resonate so heavily for other people. I mean, whether it's a breakup or whatever it is, they're gonna hear it in that song, because people tend to personalize music for their own thing, and I think that's good. It's like, you can't like give people your story and then say, okay, you have to just hear it this way. It's like whatever you get out of it, it's for you.
I think that's always the
Yeah.
best music. There's just multiple meanings. I think that's art in general. You can't really like put a finger on. I mean, it could mean one thing to one person, something else to somebody else, but and there
Yeah.
could be one unifying, thread of meaning, but it transcends, music. What's that really cliche saying? Like music, it not only the universal language, but it just speaks when words can't.
Right. A big R&B producer. I had lunch with a and R or a R&B producer last week, and he's looking at my book to like take some of the songs and make them or the poems and make them songs. And, he's like, well, which ones really like speak to you? I mean, like Ghost Notes was very hard for me to write because I was dating this guy and he like, ghosted me. And it's like, it's so hard to like get any kind of closure because you don't even really know what happened. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, and I think that a lot of kids do that now where they just like disappear and it's like we need to communicate. That's, whatever,
We have all these communication devices, yet the communication skills have gone down. It feels like it's
Yeah,
this
I mean, kids
paradox.
like live on their phones and it's like, you know, enough already. Like, put down the phone and, look me in the eye and have a conversation with me. This is why what Emma did with this song is just like so incredible to me. It's like she really felt it and she's really putting it out there. So anyway, so I called the suicide prevention hotline. I'm going to talk to them later about the song because it's just like, I think
Yeah.
this is like important. I think, with all the social media and stuff that's going out there, it's like people don't feel seen or heard. It's like it's really important to be seen and heard.
I unfortunately just lost a friend to this a few weeks back, and we have a celebration of life service for him coming up this weekend, and it's a thing. It's a shame, but you know, I encourage you. I don't really know anything about that situation and her songwriting partner, but I would encourage you to pass it along to some of those organizations because I think, especially after the pandemic, a lot of this stuff is just it's just getting to be too much, and we're seeing it surface for sure.
And it's the holidays. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
November,
know you're
December.
very close with your family, but I live in California where my family's in Florida, so I'm not around my family, and it's like it's hard the holidays,
I
for a
could
lot of
imagine.
people.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time with us today. I've got one kind of fun thing that I do at the end where I call it the shootout section, where I just say a word that's related to the guest, and you just fire something back that comes to mind. Just one word. There's no right or wrong answers. Just kind of little
Oh
popcorn.
no. Feels like a quiz. Okay.
It's a quiz. It's a quiz that you can't fail. So
Okay. All right, cool.
West Virginia.
Uh, well, my mind goes to John Denver, and I was born in Charleston, West Virginia. So I'm going to say Mountain Mama, which is an
Oh
Indian burial ground.
yeah, I
It's
love
an
it. I
Indian
love it.
burial ground across from the hospital that I was born in.
That's great.
Yeah.
Indiana.
Indiana. Um, boy, I have a real love-hate relationship with Indiana, but I'm glad I grew up there. I'm going to say family values. Let's go for that.
Like that. L.A.
The melting pot of the world.
Guns N'
All the
Roses.
cultures come together here.
Yeah,
I mean, if I found a place I liked more, I would move there. LA
sure,
is the place in my
sure.
mind. Um, okay, so now we're going to Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
My biggest learning experience in the entertainment business.
Wow. Motley Crue.
My first real experience in the entertainment. Well, the first time I saw somebody go from zero to hero, I mean, it's like when you're a manager, you're constantly chasing the tail of the dragon after you've had that experience, trying to recreate that kind of like a drug addict, and that's what
Yeah.
Molly represents for me.
Rock.
Um, rock and roll saved my soul. Let's go with that.
Country.
Um, the Heartland, it's like having made that record with June and she came from the Carter family, who I think were like the first people that ever had a record deal. It's like this is where the musical history comes from. It's the
Yeah.
Heartland.
Heartland. I like that. Art.
Um, any aesthetic that like gets your heart going,
Mm,
you know.
I like that. I
Art
like that.
art is part of heart.
Ah. How have I not heard of this before? That's genius. That's good. Music.
Um, well, as I say in Veiled Illusions, I quote Tom Petty, and I think that's what we have to read about music. Where is it? Oh, of course, I can't see it without my glasses, but music is probably the only real magic I have encountered in my life. There's there's not some trick involved with it. It's pure and it's real. It moves, it heals, it communicates, and it does all these incredible things.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
my whole book is
I do
like
remember
based
that.
on
Yeah, I
music.
remember that
Yeah.
quote. Is that towards the end
No, it's in the
or is it at the
beginning. It's like
beginning?
the
Okay.
quote that I used. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
All right, last but not least is pizza.
Pizza, not
Pizza.
licorice, just pizza.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, it could be. I mean, we haven't had that answer before, but it's what do you
Um,
know,
now what do I want on my pizza or
just
I
pizza in
don't know.
general.
I like really mostly a four cheese pizza person because I can't
Ooh.
eat pepper and all that stuff anymore. It like tears
Ah,
up my stomach. But licorice pizza is vinyl like records. So let's
right.
go with that.
I love
Yeah.
that. I love that. That's great. This is my last question that I ask every guest who's on the show, and it's probably my favorite question. This is why I ask everybody the question, which is if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what would you tell her?
That's a good one. Trust your intuition and go forth, even if you don't know where the next step is going to take you. You know, if you believe it in your heart, there's a reason. You know, God put that in your heart, you know. So
I love that.
that's,
That's
yeah.
great. There's a saying that from one of those many books that I was uh, kind of I wasn't rattling off all the titles, but in that whole success principle category, um, you know, go as far as you can see, and then once you get there, you can see further. So it's kind of like just having to be able to take that next step without seeing the other part of the staircase. And
One of my favorite sayings, fake it till you make it.
that works. That's what is that? The as if principle, right?
While
It
you're
works.
climbing the staircase, fake it till you make it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's all the same. It's all the same essence, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can never know. And also too, you know, like I went to art school, so as a painter, you like have this vision in your mind of what the painting's going to look like, and it never looks like that in the end. You just like, you know, you start on it and then, you know, when it's finished, you know, but it never looks like what you see in your head usually, you know. So
Yeah, you just go for it. Just got to start.
you never know what the lesson is either, you know. It's like, you know, you may go into doing something for a completely different reason than what it ends up being, you know. I mean, like me with Guns N' Roses, it's like when we like, you know, broke up, or I don't know. That's kind of like a girlfriend term, I guess. But when it was like done, I kept on saying, why? I was so hurt, you know. It was like I kept on, you know, I did all this therapy. I still do therapy, but you know, it's like I kept asking myself why this happened. And this one therapist said to me, well, did you actually think that, you know, Axl Rose was a nice guy? And I was like, well, no, not in those terms, you know, but I knew the music needed to be heard. But now when I say why to myself about that experience, to me, it's about the TV series, even though, you know, it won't be solely based on Guns N' Roses. That's where that concept came from, you know. It's like, oh, so that's why, you know. And it's
Yeah,
what, you know, that was like 86 or something. So, you know, like 40 years later, you know, you never know why
right.
until you do, you
Until
know.
that exactly.
So sometimes you have to just like let go of it and go, okay, well, I guess I'll know one day what that was about. You know? You know. But it was like my biggest learning curve, and got me a job at Geffen Records, and propelled me forward to do everything that I can do now. So I've been able to help a lot of artists reach their dreams through going through this hardship, basically.
It's
So
a crazy business.
it is crazy. It, you never know why, completely. So, but
Well,
if someone's
one thing's
telling you
clear.
in your heart to do it,
That is, you took the words out of my mouth. It's like it. It's like you didn't choose this life; it chose you. I really believe that that's true.
I believe that. I mean, I went to art school. I wanted to be a painter. It's like, look how that turned out. And like Johnny Depp moved to Hollywood thinking he was going to be in a band, and look how that turned out. Well, in the end, he wasn't a band. Now he is.
Was that Nicolas
But he
Cage
was,
that kind of intervened on that?
I
Somebody
don't,
did. One of the some other actor was like, "Hey man, I got an agent that you should probably meet up with," and then it was like the rest was history. I don't know if it was Nicolas Cage or somebody,
I know
but
the guy that brought him out for music, who was John Harrington, and then he got that show.
okay,
Well, yeah, and then he was like, kaboom. It was like huge.
yeah, yeah,
Now
wild.
he's doing. It's crazy what
Well,
happens, you
he's
know.
still doing his music with Alice Cooper, right? And
Oh yeah, I know. He does the Hollywood vampires and
yeah,
stuff. He had a
yeah,
band called P at one point too. I don't know if he's still doing that or not. Yeah. And he did the Viper Room. I mean,
yeah.
you know, he turned the Viper Room into this like legendary club. Before that, it was called the Central, and like, you couldn't pay people to go there. I mean, the Go-Go's did a video when it was like the Central, but everybody kind of frowned on that room. And now it's like this legendary room. But I hear they're going to tear down the whole block and rebuild the Viper Room and all this other stuff, but who knows?
Wow, wow. Yeah, they were talking about that for a while.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, uh, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Where we said this earlier, VickyHamilton.com. Where else can folks find you beyond that? But I would assume that that's probably the best place to find all of your details.
That's my writing page is VickyHamilton.com. My record company is DarkSparkMusic.com.
And you
Those are
are still working, obviously, with a lot of bands, and you are also an expert consultant. How can artists find you if you are still available
You can
for
write to
consulting?
me at either one of those websites. There's a form to write to me and send me music, and let's hear it. I'm actually looking for some consult clients right now. So, yeah, bring it.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for spending the time to be on. And you all have been watching and listening to the Jason D'Amico Show. Be sure to check out VickyHamilton.com for more info on her incredible career and life and what she has on those pages. And we will see you all on the next episode. Peace.